So strategic management is practically or basically a continuous process of identifying and describing the strategies of an organization. These are the strategies that managers use for the achievement of better performance and their companies gaining competitive advantage for the entire organization. So this course or this video rather deals with the basic components of strategic management. It covers some of the very important theories in the strategic management. We'll also talk about some examples associated with strategic management. Therefore, it's very critical. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us directly and we can always clarify. A strategy is an action plan built to achieve a specific goal or a set of goals within a definite time frame. So while operating in an organizational framework, therefore, a strategy is a process of building capabilities that allows a firm to create value for its customers, its shareholders, and the society in general, while operating in this competitive market. The process of strategic management entails or goes beyond pointing out the firm's vision, mission, and the objectives. It goes towards developing the policies and have a plan that is set to outline the different objectives and a way to allocate resources, and these resources are aimed at spearheading the implementation of these strategies. Now, in 1980, Michael Porter provided 4 key elements that you always want to consider while performing a competitive strategy analysis. And he talked about the SWOT analysis. SWOT stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. Now, the strengths and weakness of the firm are internal factors of the firm. So there are more personal values that are key to the executives. The other hand, we have the industry opportunities and threats. These are external factors. They are more societal and stakeholder expectations. Now, in a stable or a predictable environment, strategic planning can enable organizations to achieve and maintain. In a real-world situation, only few organizations and the executives experience a perfectly stable or a predictable situation. Therefore, this is why it's very important to understand the concepts of strategic management. And we're looking at intended strategy, emergent strategy, and the realized strategy. So in a nutshell, these strategies are very, very important to us. An intended strategy deals with the intentions of the organization. So what is it that we aspire to do as a company? What is our intention in the market? What is it that we are hoping to execute or to achieve? The intended strategies are often described in much more detail in organization strategic plan. Now, you're wondering, if you're a small company and you just started, you don't have a strategic plan. You always have what you call a business plan. So the business plan is a strategic plan for a newly established firm. This plan outlines a rough strategy showing the intentions of the organization that we want to keep track of. Therefore, an intended strategy, on the other hand, a good example of an intended strategy, I'll look at FedEx. Now, FedEx has established intended strategy. As an undergraduate student at Yale in 1965, Frederick Smith was tasked with one of the assignment to design a business plan. And so he developed a plan that outlined a delivery system, an effective delivery system that made shipping and packaging through a central hub. And therefore, these packages were shipped from this central hub to their final destination. So he really liked the idea so much that he started what we call the Federal Express or the FedEx. This followed the plan that he had outlined as part of his project. Now, today, Frederick Smith has a wealth of over $2 billion, and FedEx is among the top 8 world's most admired company, as described by the Forbes magazine or the Fortune magazine. Therefore, we can say that Smith's intended strategy or FedEx intended strategy worked out much effectively than even what Smith would have thought or imagined. Now, an emergent strategy is a different type of strategy. This is a strategy that emerges with time. So it's not planned for, it's created by the organization while the organization is responding to a different aspect or a different threat or a different opportunities or challenges. Now, emergent strategies also are very dynamic in nature. They may result in both success and or failure. Depending on the effectiveness of the strategy and its implementation, then it could either be a success or a fail. A good example of emergent strategy, still looking at FedEx, is the introduction of the Zip Mail. So this in 1980s, FedEx slightly drifted away from its intended strategy to focus on package delivery to monetize from the new emerging technology, the fax mail. So they had the fax machines and they developed a new service within FedEx known as the Zip Mail. So this service, documents were using the fax mail to transmit or transfer the documents between FedEx offices and to the customer's final destination offices. So this system began to have challenges, just like any other technological system. And so with the challenges coming in, the technology started having glitches and they ended up being so frustrated and it failed terribly. Zip Mail was finally discontinued. Now, this did not take long. It was in the 1980s. Now, they lost millions and millions of dollars. That's an example of a failed emergent strategy. We say these strategies can fail or can be successful. Now, the 5 steps of strategic management process. Strategic management is slightly complicated process, but is always evolving. It's always improving. So when we talk about the process of strategic management, we are looking at how to establish a framework and in the different steps that you want to follow to formulate and implement an executable strategy. So let's look at the analysis, what it involves. So we talked about formulation of strategy and the implementation of the strategy. Very, very important when you're doing the strategic management process. So let's look at the Porter's 5 forces, the SWOT analysis, the PESTEL, the value chain management. All these processes can be very instrumental in doing industry analysis, trying to understand the internal factors, internal environment, and the external environment. Therefore, it's very, very important. When doing strategy formulation, you first need to analyze the internal and external environments. The organization therefore will arrive at what we call a generic strategy. So this is not the real strategy, but it's something that is derived from as a result of doing an assessment of the internal factors and the external factors. Then we deliver this maximizing the core competences and the prospective competitive advantages. The other thing you want to do is to set goals. So goal setting is the next step in strategy formation. Once you've analyzed your internal and external factors, you need to identify a goal. What is it that is your goal? I define the strategy in hand. How management intends to find out or communicate their goals and effectively is very critical. So we need to know what are our strengths, what are the opportunities, and we're going to start implementing the different functions so we can realize the overall goal and objective. The implementation phase is very critical. This is a basic function of the functional management process. So at the operational level, we want to make sure that we are implementing the strategy to the latter. We already have a working strategy. What next? We need to make sure that the strategy is properly implemented. We want to solidify the organization structure and all the stakeholders so they can support the strategy. Now, feedback is very, very important. As we go through the different strategic management process, it's always important to go back to review the different stages and see whether we are realizing the short-term goals, the mid-term goals, and in the long run, the overall goals. Now, before we have a strategy out, the next thing you need to make sure is all the stakeholders, departments, they're brought on board. They know what's happening. Make sure that resources are allocated to the different functions of the strategy. Now, strategic management is a continuous process. It starts with designing or defining the vision, mission, objectives, goals of the company. Now, what exactly is a vision? We are talking about a vision. My vision is to be on top of the other company. So the vision stays on top of a major hierarchy in any strategic intent. So it explains what the organization ultimately wants to achieve in the long term. Now, John Kotter defines a vision as a statement of organization in the future. This is something that Alex Miller and Mark Greger are in agreement with. And they say a vision is an intention that is so broad and all-inclusive and forward-thinking. A vision fosters the idea of experiment. It promotes the long-term thinking about the organization. It's one of the factors that foster risk-taking in an organization. Therefore, having that knowledge on the back of our mind, a good vision is a very important factor representation of integrity and should always inspire, motivate its people to work towards the realization of that vision. We also mentioned the mission statement. Mission. This is the role of the organization. What is it that we exist for? It's the purpose of the organization. So we are saying, what is it that is our purpose concerning why are we in existence? What nature of business are we doing? And what is it that customers seek from us that we need to satisfy them? That's very important. Make sure you understand your vision, make sure you have a vision, and make sure the mission is also well articulated. Now, we've learned a lot of things today. We've defined what a strategy is. we've looked at the strategic management process as divided into two broad categories: the formulation, implementation, and execution. And then finally, we've looked at the building blocks of the strategy. We've talked about the mission, vision, and we've talked about the core values and objectives of the company. Guys, friends, this is going to be more interesting when we go to the next topic. We'll be discussing in detail what is it that we need to do under the implementation, what is it that we need to do under the formulation of strategy, and how does a real strategy look like in the long run. Stay tuned to our channel, and thank you so much for watching.